welcome to this vlog and welcome to my channel. My name is Emma and welcome to another reading vlog. I'm going to sit down with you right now and open up this vlog, let you know what I have been reading, what I'm planning on reading. I actually have a substantial number of smaller updates, so I thought we'll just go ahead and get it all done, even though I'm not looking my best because it's after gym, after shower, after dinner time at my house. But nonetheless, we're having a good time, and you don't have to look great all the time. You don't have to look great ever, just as long as you're vibing, feeling good. That's all that matters. So today with my reading, I started off with a major fail. So last night before bed, I read 2 chapters of Probable by Rita and her cat Sneaky Pie, and I was a bit hesitant of it after I read those 2 chapters, but I figured I would just give it some more time. I usually will give a book 100 pages to capture my attention, but when I read, I think 3 more chapters today, I couldn't do it. The writing, not great. I hate to give criticism on books because I feel like I'm not qualified, but I conferenced with my mother, who was also wanting to read this book at the same time as me, and we both agreed that the writing was not very good. It's almost like for every word, she had written 2 words. Like, there was a lot of overwriting, over-explaining. The dialogue was all complete sentences. And one of the best pieces of writing advice that I ever stumbled across on the internet was real people don't speak in full sentences. Like how I'm speaking now, there's a lot of stalls, pauses, likes, half sentences that turn into another sentence. In 40 pages, which is how far I got, there was already like over-explanation of the connection between things. I was like, I just don't need to know this much information. It takes away the fun part of reading, where I get to imagine how things are going down on my own with the author's guidance. Though I hardly ever DNF books, sadly 40 pages in, I'm gonna go ahead and DNF Probable because I just don't want to deal with it. But speaking of my mother, before Agatha Christie, there was Katherine Green, who was someone that Agatha Christie allegedly took a lot of inspiration from with her mysteries. Katherine Green wrote many murder mysteries in that same classic style as Agatha Christie, but she wrote before Agatha Christie did. And so my mother, even though most of her books are out of print, my mom was able to find some of her books. For Christmas last year, she bought me 2 of Katherine Green's books and said that we're going to read them together. Tonight, what I'm gonna do is read the first 2 chapters, which this is an 8x11 book, so it's really thin, but I'm going to read the first 2 chapters of That Affair Next Door by Katherine Green, which I believe my mom told me is her first book. I might be wrong. My mom knows an absurd amount of information about this author. We're supposed to be reading it along together, and I have been sorely procrastinating this one, so I'm gonna read the first 2 chapters of this tonight, and then my mom and I are gonna have book club together. I can handle a lot more like gore and creepy, scary things than she can, but in terms of like what we like in a murder mystery, we're kind of one mind. And then veering completely off TBR, I am kind of already at the end of my TBR. The 2 books that I have left are The Name of the Wind and The Maidens. So I went into my shelves and picked out something that I hadn't read yet that I am more in the mood for. I'm kind of worn out on the thriller thing right now, so I've got some mysteries and fantasies on my audiobook shelf, but right now, physically, I'm going to read The Declaration of the Rights of Magicians, which is the first in a series. I started reading this when I went into my major reading slump last fall, and I made it like halfway through, but I realized that for the second quarter of that half of this book, I had just been flipping the pages and not paying attention. So this book is basically the Enlightenment in Europe, but add magic to the mix. So take all of the politics, all of the revolutions, all of the uprisings that are going on during the Age of Enlightenment, but add magic. As we see in many fantasy books that have a political aspect, magic is criminalized, and so there's a lot with the Enlightenment that's going on with that. There are some fictional characters, but mainly the main characters are real people but fictionalized. When I started reading this book before, that was one of my favorite parts, was seeing these people from my educational background come to life on this page. I'm gonna look up when the second book is coming out, but I am really excited about the prospect of actually making it through this book because I was really enjoying it. My mental health took a nosedive and I just couldn't read anymore. I'm very excited to get back to this. Then on my audiobook library shelf, I have 3 things. So I have Alice Isn't Dead by Joseph Fink, The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson, and Gideon the Ninth by Tasman Moyer. So I listened to maybe 30-40%, probably more like 30% of Alice Isn't Dead by Joseph Fink today when I was at the gym. It's definitely very intriguing. I don't know if I'm in the mood for it right now, but I'm almost caught up in it despite myself. Joseph Fink is one of the creators of Welcome to Night Vale, the podcast, which I absolutely adore as a lover of not all things creepy, but most things creepy. So this book is basically Joseph Fink creating a novel-style narrative that is very similar to Night Vale, but not the same storyline in the least. So Alice is a woman who has recently passed away, or that's what everyone believes, and her wife, in her grief, has taken up a new job as a truck driver so that she can travel the country looking for Alice because she believes that Alice isn't dead. Because I read so many thrillers and kind of close to horror books 2 weeks ago, and I'm not used to that much of the scary stuff, I've kind of grown weary of it. Now, true crime and murder mysteries are kind of not the same as horror and thrillers for me, so I can still do that, but I need to take a pause on the thrillers. And speaking of thrillers, I did finish an audiobook today. I listened to The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, and unfortunately, I barely enjoyed it in the least. I feel so awful because I listened to the whole book, like I gave it my best shot. I don't objectively think it was a bad book. I objectively think that it was a really good book. I just don't think that it was for me. The writing was really, really difficult for me. And I mentioned that in last week's vlog. There was something about it that I couldn't get a hold of it. I didn't know what was going on at any point throughout the 9 hours that I spent listening to the audiobook. I had absolutely no clue what was going on. And I got to the point about 60% of the way through where I just kind of turned it on and let it play and figured, hopefully I will get enough bits and pieces put together that I will understand what happened. And I think I do, but it's still foggy. Like, I understand the overall sentiment conveyed, but I don't really know what happened. And I went and read some reviews on Goodreads of people who really enjoyed it, and they were like, oh my gosh, the writing was incredible. It was so creepy. It was so scary. It got way under my skin. And I felt none of those things. Like, I objectively saw how it was creepy, but I wasn't creeped out. I objectively saw that the writing was good in a very particular style, but that particular style is not for me. Whereas with Probable Clause, there was 2 words where there should have been 1 word, like things were over-explained. I felt like The Only Good Indians should have been twice as long. It was just missing a lot for me to have any freaking clue what was going on. I did see some other Goodreads reviews that were similar to my thoughts, so I don't feel like I'm totally crazy and out of the loop. For the fact that I see objectively that it's a good book, it's just not for me. I think I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. For now, I'm going to go and dig into these. I'm just trying to find like different places to sit on the floor because I don't want all my vlog clips to come from the same spot. But hi, it's Tuesday night, about 6:30, and I have a library haul for you. Like I mentioned, I've basically reached almost the end of my September TBR because I read a bunch of books really fast. I've just decided to go completely rogue. I went to the library and I got on the computers, and I have a list of kind of like ideas for an October TBR and for a November TBR, just books that I'm wanting to read in the future. So I wrote them down in my phone and I went through the ones on that list that caught my attention, typed them into the little computer, and saw what they had. There's a lot of small libraries spread throughout my town. All the books are kind of distributed between, unless it's a really popular book, then all of them will have their own copy. But like, I looked for Silence of the Lambs and the Hannibal Lecter books, and they were all checked out of my library, but they had them in other campuses. I just picked out 4 books that looked interesting to me. The first one that I checked out was Angels and Demons by Dan Brown, and this is the first installment in the Robert Langdon series. The Da Vinci Code is actually the second installment, which is one of my favorite movies and a book that I read and rated 5 stars, kind of just for the sake of how much I love the story and love the movie. And the fact that the book and the movie are almost 100% aligned. I would say like 95% aligned. I'm going to read this, and then on Netflix, they also have the Angels and Demons movie that also stars Tom Hanks, who I've been in love with since I was 5 years old. So I'm very excited about this. I love the whole concept of the Robert Langdon stuff, but I only know the one story, the Da Vinci Code. So I'm very excited to get into Angels and Demons. The Robert Langdon series is basically about a professor from America named Robert Langdon, who is a professor of symbology and an actively studying, writing symbologist in the academic space. And he is an expert on religious symbology and kind of secret societies and all that stuff. And so throughout his adventures, he gets roped into this really high stakes, like the church keeping secrets through these secret societies and all this stuff. So as far as I know, Angels and Demons is very similar to the Da Vinci Code, but it just uncovers a different secret society than the Opus Dei that the Da Vinci Code focuses on. One of my other recent favorite books that I read was A Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. So when I saw it at the library, I decided to pick up her first book, The Night Circus. So I tried to read this on a Thanksgiving break when I was 14 years old. And I have such a specific memory of it because that's when I had first started watching BookTube. And I was so disappointed because I think I just wasn't ready for The Night Circus. I have only recently gotten where I can read very like plain sense poetry and actually understand it. Prose has always been my go-to, and I used to really struggle with poetry. And so I think Erin Morgenstern's writing for me as a 14-year-old was just absolutely not it. So I'm very excited, having read The Starless Sea, to get into The Night Circus. This is one of my best friend's favorite books. When I say, Danny girl, I don't know what to read, she says, have you read The Night Circus yet? And I say, no, I haven't. And then remember how I said that I was kind of tired of horror and tired of thrillers? Well, when I saw these on the shelf of the library, I couldn't help myself. I got both Final Girls and The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager, which are his first 2 books. I believe Final Girls is his first book and The Last Time I Lied is the second one. I really enjoyed Lock Every Door. I think my expectations for it were incorrect, but for the actual book itself, I really loved it. So I'm very excited to read these 2 from Riley Sager. I've heard that his writing gets better as it goes along, so I'm gonna keep that in mind as I go from like the middle of his repertoire to back to the beginning. Anyway, I'm very excited about these 4 books that I have checked out from the library. I didn't listen to any audio today at work, but I have read, since we last spoke, close to 100 pages of A Declaration of the Rights of Magicians, and it is just as wonderful as I remembered. I'm gonna try to read as much of this as I can tonight, just because I want I want more. I want to devour it. And last night I did read the first 2 chapters as my mother assigned me of That Affair Next Door by Katherine Green. And I really enjoyed it. The main character's name is Miss Butterworth, and she is an old maid, and she's iconic. I love her. She's amazing. It also has one of my favorite narration styles, which is that the main character is writing it herself. So it's like first person, and she refers to herself as I, and then talks to the reader as you. So yeah, this is just gonna be an ongoing read, but I'll keep you updated on it since it is a classic and foundational piece of literature as we know it today. So that is all I have for you right now. I'm going to go make a brown sugar oat milk coffee. I'm really tired. I am ready to go to bed right now, but I want to just have a relaxing night to recoup. That's one thing that is kind of hard, is when I'm either recovering from kind of a mental health crisis situation or just a low period. I want to just go straight to sleep, but sleeping is regenerative for my body and my brain, but sleep doesn't do the same thing that like participating in my hobbies, reading a good book, sitting with the cat, those active things that bring me joy. Sleep doesn't do that for me, so I've got to make sure that I get all of that. But yeah, I'm gonna go make a coffee, and it's early enough that it should be a-okay for me to drink it this evening. I'm gonna go get to it, and I'll talk to you later. Happy Saturday. I just wanted to sit down really quick while my coffee is brewing. I did not vlog a lot this week because I didn't read a lot this week. I kind of got bogged down by the books that I was reading, and so it took me a while to get through some things, but I'm currently tuned in to G's 24-hour readathon live stream, and so I'm going to be making use of that today, hopefully getting through some books all the way and taking big chunks out of others. So let's get into that. So the book that really slowed me down this week was Alice Isn't Dead by Joseph Fink, which I actually completed via audio, and it wasn't for me. I didn't like it. The middle was a real slog. It was really hard to get through the middle. It was intriguing, and the end was confusing. I didn't realize that this book was originally the story was originally in podcast format until I was near the end and started going and looking up reviews online. Because when I don't like something, I tend to go and look at Goodreads. I went and looked at the online reviews, and it seems that there's 3 kind of camps of people. One, people who loved the podcast before they read the book, and so then loved the book because they loved the story. 2, people who hadn't read the book and thought it was okay. And 3, people who hated all of it and hadn't read the podcast. Hadn't read the podcast? Hadn't listened to the podcast. Alice Isn't Dead was in the same kind of American Gothic style, but American Gothic not in the like kind of Wild West or any romanticized version like strip malls, truck drivers, long stretches of highway. So it was very atmospheric, and I did enjoy the kind of commercialist American Gothic atmosphere, but there wasn't a lot more there for me. Because it was originally a podcast, some of the problems that I had with it made sense to me once I found that out. Like, the pace of the story was very odd. There was a lot of places where it felt like there could have been more story going on, but there wasn't. We were just traveling through time, but it wasn't like a traveling montage. It was like a traveling 30 chapters. And it wasn't like The Lord of the Rings where the traveling is productive. Like, it is productive and we're learning things, but there's not a lot being put together, just kind of collecting information, and then it gets put together all at once for you. I also felt like there was a serious lack of character description, and then it focused too much on action description to the point where I couldn't tell you hardly anything about the characters, but I can tell you a lot about the way that people's bodies looked or the way that the atmosphere appeared. And there was just an imbalance there, and that makes sense because on a podcast, it was probably acted by different people, which different voices and different inflections and things just give you already another picture of what characters are like. That's why radio shows used to be so popular back in the day. So anyway, even though I hate to rate things low because it's so objective and I don't trust my own opinions, I'm going to give, sadly, Alice Isn't Dead 2 stars because it just didn't work for me. It went from 0 to 100 really fast. At the beginning, it was about this story about this one woman and her one wife that she's looking for. And then out of nowhere, it turned into this national cosmic creature battle. And kind of, there was no escalation. It was just 1 minute it was about Alice and Keisha, and the next minute it was about this national war. My next book on audio is going to be The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. Today I'm going to have a couple of things that I'm doing where I can't be physically reading, like cooking and cleaning the kitchen. Sadly, I hate cleaning the kitchen. It's the worst, but it needs to be done today. I'll be listening to The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. I didn't have a lot of time to read physically this week, but when I was reading physically, I was reading The Declaration of the Rights of Magicians by H.G. Parry, which I am loving just as much as I did the last time. There are a couple of different timelines and kind of perspectives. The first of which the book opens on in the first chapter is a young African woman who is spellbound as a slave on a plantation in South America, which I think is my favorite perspective, even though up until the point where I am in the book, it's got the least attention to it. It's definitely the most intriguing because it involves manipulating and changing magic, whereas the 2 other perspectives are learning how to deal with magic, as it is, not trying to change it in any way. Whereas the perspective of the young woman is she's trying to change the magic that has been used against her so that she can escape. The second timeline perspective is mainly William Pitt and William Wilberforce, who are working in the government in England, trying to figure out how to use their power to A, abolish slavery, which is a huge uphill battle, and B, to get justice for magicians because both of them believe that magic shouldn't be punished, but it definitely is. Then the third perspective is Robespierre, who is a man who came to power in France during the revolution, right after the revolution began, and he has some interesting magic going on. So I really love the way that magic is fully integrated into this history, where when I'm reading it, it all makes sense. Like, there's nothing where I'm like, whoa, what? That's crazy. So for example, without spoilers, Robespierre was a man who came to power very suddenly, and almost against all odds in France. And there is a magical explanation for that in this book. And I really enjoy things like that. Because, according to the multiverse theory, in some of the universe, that's actually the case. But anyway, I'll be continuing to read this today, as well as finishing up my very quick read that I started yesterday, Final Girls by Riley Sager, which I am totally in love with. I had to stop reading it last night because it has a lot of my actual fear triggers, so I was like, we're just gonna put this down and pick up my magic book. Final Girls is about 3 women, Quincy, Lisa, and Samantha, who were all the last girls who survived at the end of a massacre. So for example, Quincy's massacre, she was staying in a cabin with her friends and all of her friends were murdered, but she survived. And I've heard that Riley Sager's writing and storytelling starts off mediocre at the beginning of his publication and gets better. And I did read out of publication order, so I was a little concerned that I wouldn't like the first book. I think that this is phenomenal. So anyway, Quincy is our main character who has just reconnected with Samantha, one of the other final girls, after the third final girl has unalived herself very unfortunately and very tragically. So that's what we're dealing with. I don't trust anybody. I'm starting to think that we have an unreliable narrator, and I definitely think that everybody has some alternate motive. There's a lot of paranoia happening for the reader as we move through this story. I think Quincy is very sure of herself and sure of what she thinks is going on, but as the reader, I'm not. So I'm gonna go get my coffee and my breakfast and then finish Final Girls, and then I'm gonna move on to reading some more of the Declaration of the Rights of Magicians. But I'm not sure how long this live is going to go on, but we have 20 minutes left in the reading sprint, so I'm going to try to get some reading done before the next one. Very excited and happy today. The idea of participating in a live stream like this is just so fun. Even though I'm just watching, I have it on my TV, I'm just participating from the outside. It's so fun, and I love doing stuff like this. So I'll talk to you later. You're so beautiful. You need to show the world how beautiful you are. Hi, so I just finished Final Girls. Hold on, let me grab it. I just finished Final Girls by Riley Sager, and I could not be more impressed with the suspense and the construction of the story and the full circle nature of the ending. I also could not have been more wrong about the twist. I had an idea that I was yeah, I think this is probably, no, absolutely not. So I'll think for the rest of the day about my rating, but for now, this was really good, and I'm really pleasantly surprised because from what I've heard about his writing, like I mentioned, I expected it to be not as good. Yeah, I mean, this was amazing. I made it. I'm going to close out the vlog for you. It is Sunday afternoon, and I realize that I have had some serious vlogging issues this week, but we live and learn. So first of all, I want to say that my apartment smells atrocious right now because I'm cooking dried beans. A pound of dried beans is so much cheaper than the equivalent of a can, of the amount of cans that you would get if you just boiled a pound of dry beans, and it smells awful to cook dry beans. I'm currently dressed for the gym, which is where I will be going when my beans finish cooking. But I'm also having my friend Kelly over for dinner tonight. She's gonna do homework because she's still in school, and I think I'm gonna work on this vlog and maybe read a little bit. Hello. This one's in a strange mood today. Goodbye. But I wanted to give you the small reading updates that I have and then go ahead and close out the vlog because I don't think I'm gonna have enough reading done to be able to update you at the end of the day today. So I am now past page 300 of the Declaration of the Rights of Magicians, which I am enjoying more and more as it goes along. It's still kind of a slow read, but nonetheless, it is pleasing my soul because I have basically studied the French and American revolutions every year at school for my entire life, and that's the history that this book is surrounding. The story for me is really about the characters that she's creating from these real life men, how they are responding to change and how change is happening because of them, and their relationships with each other, and I think some of them are about to meet, which is really exciting. And then today, while I was in town getting a couple of groceries and some yarn to knit a sweater, I started listening to The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson, which when I finish this clip, I'm gonna go listen to some more, but I am enjoying it so much. So I'm only 18% of the way through. I'm listening to it on 1.75. 1.75 is kind of my typical speed for audiobooks. If I feel like I can really understand the narrator really well, I may speed it up to 2. But it just kind of depends on the narrator's voice, whether I listen to it at a 1.5 or 1.75 or 2. I think I'm gonna speed it up to 2 when I start listening again, but I'm only 18% of the way through, so this synopsis is kind of what I understand so far. The Year of the Witching is about a young woman named Emmanuelle whose mother Miriam has passed away, kind of under suspicious circumstances. She died in childbirth, but she had spent the vast majority of her pregnancy living in the dark woods where allegedly the demon Lilith and her witch daughters and all of the evil people live. And so Emmanuelle has kind of always been marked as different. The whole town and everything that everyone in the town does is highly affected by this religion that has declared the dark wood a place of evilry and dark magic. And the religion is not Christianity, but it shares some language with early American evangelical Christianity, like fire and brimstone kind of stuff. It's very interesting. I am enjoying it a lot so far. There's a lot of gore imagery and like blood imagery. In just 18% of the book, there's a lot of blood going on. I had to go stir and salt my beans. So all that being said, I am going a bit slower with my reading, but I'm definitely enjoying myself. And I really enjoyed reading Final Girls this weekend. It was amazing, and I have The Last Time I Lied staring at me from my to be read stack. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you will stick around for the next one. I hope that you are doing well. If you're not, I hope it gets better soon, and I hope that you love what you're reading. Goodbye!